Sure. So the MLB has issued a new ruling for the foreign substances.
Yeah.
Under the new guidelines, any pitcher who possesses or applies foreign substances in violation of the rules will be ejected from the game and automatically suspended in accordance with the rules and past precedents. Suspension under Rule 3.01 are 10 games.
Yep.
Starting pitchers will have more than one mandatory check per game, and relievers must be checked at the end of the inning when they enter the game and when they are taken out of the game, whichever comes first.
Yeah.
Typically, the inspections will take place between innings or during pitching changes to give the umpires ample time to perform a thorough check without delaying the game. Players will be paid during suspensions for this violation. Repeat offenders will be subject to progressive discipline.
Yeah.
Clubs and club personnel will also be subject to discipline for failure to ensure compliance with these rules.
Yeah. So one of the questions I had last week was there going to be progressive suspensions? And it sounds like there will be.
That's good.
They're
treating it like steroids.
They are treating it like steroids, and it kind of needs to be treated like steroids.
Yeah.
I know we're not the only ones I know we are, this isn't the only way of thinking that people have. A lot of pitchers are actually mad about this.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Rodon just came out this week and said he doesn't agree with the sudden suspensions when the Astros knowingly cheated as well, and none of their players were suspended.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are upset about that. Tyler Glasnow being one of them.
Yes.
He just went down with a UCL injury. Could be very lengthy.
Yep.
But he's blaming it on the lack of foreign substance use. The fact that he couldn't use the sticky stuff, because he admitted in his interview to using a sunscreen and rosin mixture.
Yep.
Which is one of the ones that were named. Spider Tack, sunscreen, and rosin were the two main substances that were being checked for on pitchers. But he basically, came out and said he thinks it's ridiculous. A lot of players think it's ridiculous that there's a sudden, all of a sudden they weren't paying attention to this, and now it's 10 games and they're checking you multiple times a game.
Yeah.
So they think it's
going back to the Astros. This isn't comparable. These are two completely different situations.
Yeah.
I like that they're treating it like steroids.
Yeah.
Now, do I think the Astros should have been more severely punished? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that. I think this is met with frustration, and I do, to an extent, I feel for some pitchers to say that all of a sudden the MLB's interested in it, and it's just like it is very abrupt. But I think with a situation like this, you kind of need to be abrupt, because if you slowly and gradually put these things in before you just get to outright suspending people are going to find ways around cheating.
Yeah, well, it's for the sake of the integrity of the game.
Exactly.
There have been so many ways to cheat in baseball and in the majors for so long.
Yeah.
They have to do this to keep things intact, to keep baseball history intact.
Yeah.
And yeah, I understand it's mid-season, and ideally you want this kind of change, but the numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? For there to be so many no-hitters.
Yeah.
And to break records undeservingly. I don't think that's fair to those who set them before.
Yeah, it's definitely the integrity of the game is at stake here, and I think the discipline that they're going to hand down, or the rules that they put in place, represent that. Like I said before, it's going to be a messy situation. A lot of people aren't going to like this, but at the same time, you look at a guy like Garrett Cole, who we talked about last week. I was watching the game Wednesday night. And I was watching the end of the game, and it was the 8th inning, and he was still in there. He only gave up 2 runs off 2 home runs. Yeah. So he's not using the stuff now.
He's adapting.
And he's adapting.
And a good pitcher as well.
And that's the thing. Like, for Tyler Glasnow to come out and say that he had to completely alter his way of pitching, you shouldn't have to in that case. It should just be you're trying to get that extra edge if you're using the sticky stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just because you're using substances, that won't get you into the show. If you got there, you earned it. So
yeah,
to get off of it and to be a good pitcher again, you have to figure out how to get your game back in a true and honest way.
And I think that the ability just to use the rosin bag on there should be enough for you to get some sort of grip on it.
Yeah.
Anything other than that just seems unnecessary in my opinion, but
Yep, fair enough. Let's move on to All-Star voting.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, I want to talk about Vladimir Guerrero for a second.
yeah.
When he came into the league,
Yes.
like when he got called up to the MLB, I think a lot of people were a little disappointed, thought he was overhyped. So I don't know if that lowered expectations, because right now he is very much blowing them out of the water.
Yes. He is very much been the best offensive player in the league this year.
Oh, easily. And right now he's probably front running the MVP race.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll touch
He's-
on that a bit later.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and with that, he's earned himself first in voting for the All-Star game.
Yeah, not just in the
By
American
far.
League, in the MLB.
Yeah, in the MLB, and he is 22 years old, turning 22 this year.
Yeah.
Young guy, the future is bright for him. And I don't think, it's definitely not a hot take. Like, he deserves that.
He does.
He's been fantastic.
Because he's not your typical power hitter. He's walking a ton. His on-base percentage is ridiculous. The guy hits for more than just home runs. If you look at him, he's got, 3-4 hit nights consistently,
Yep.
and he's hitting for doubles. He's finding gaps. He's a smart hitter. He's not just going to go up there and try to go 450 dead center every single time, but he can do that.
And
he can do that very easily.
yeah, he's looking like a prime Miguel Cabrera.
He's looking
A
like,
triple crown, I don't think is far-fetched for him
No.
to get. He may even get it this year.
he looks like his dad.
Yeah, better.
He looks better than his dad.
Yeah, better.
And Vlad's a
that's-
legend.
Yeah, that's high praises.
That's what's scary.
Like this may be, if he continues this pace, this may be better than anything Vlad Senior's ever done.
Yeah. And I love the way that the MLB is going now, that it's these young players that are dominating the league. Like you've got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the American League side leading votes, and on the National League side, it's Ronald Acuna. And Ronald Acuna is just as explosive.
Yep.
Just, he's a fun player to watch. You've got Fernando Tatis is in there on the other side too. You've got guys that are starting to make a name for themselves this year, like Jesse Winker. Like there's a lot of younger guys coming up that are just making this league very fun to watch.
Yeah.
And just it's very entertaining baseball, and it's nice to see guys not. I'm not going to say that Vlad didn't stutter when he came up. His first 2 seasons were a little abnormal, but the fact that he's 22 years old and he's putting up these types of numbers is just crazy. Like it's not going to be one of those slow rising players that maybe by the time they're getting their big contract at 26, 27, 28 years old is when they're really thriving. He's right out of the gate. And they're forcing a lot of clubs to adapt, and they're making a lot of these younger clubs like San Diego, Atlanta, and Toronto. They're putting them on the map and putting them in places to succeed and possibly get postseason play.
Yep. Jays fans have more to look to with Marcus Semien
Yeah.
leading the votes at second. As of now, he doesn't have much competition in Altuve and LeMahieu, who may be underperforming, or maybe Marcus Semien's just been that good.
Marcus
and then,
Semien has been unreal.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And then at short, you have Bo Bichette behind Xander Bogaerts, but still, future's bright for their fielders, their hitters.
And they still haven't even seen George Springer for more than 2 games.
No.
That's the thing. They're doing all this stuff. We're talking about this stuff, and we're not talking about George Springer, who's the biggest offseason signing in Blue Jays history.
Yep.
So
I do like seeing some vets in the votes, though. At catcher, you have Buster Posey for the NL and Sal Perez leading the way.
yeah.
It's great to see those guys still kicking around now.
And it's not like one of those things where, you see a lot in the like NBA All-Star game, especially, where they vote in a lot of guys. Like when Kobe was playing his final years, they were voting him in, like Dwayne Wade. They were voting him in, and they weren't Dirk. Like they were voting them out of respect as opposed to ability.
Yep.
Whereas Buster Posey's having a good year.
Yeah.
And Sal Perez on the other side is having a good year in Kansas City. So they're deserving of being starters. They're deserving of being in that conversation. Whether or not they're the best catchers in the game, but they're having good enough seasons that you're not upset about that if you're trying to get the best players in the starting lineup.
Yeah. Now at third, Rafael Devers is a little not surprising to me. Like he's putting up the numbers.
Yeah.
But you'd expect a little more out of Anthony Rendon, maybe even out of Bregman.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Bregman's starting to figure it out. I think the Astros are starting to come into their own. I think if the Oakland A's don't have these hot stretches that they always have, they're 12-2 in the month of June. So that's the thing. I think we'd be talking more about them. Rafael Devers had a very good start to the year.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes him look a little less intriguing at third base there. But he started the year on fire. He was one of the best hitters in baseball within the first couple weeks of the season. So
So let's move on to the MLB MVP and Cy Young race.
yeah,
Leading the way, let's start with Cy Young. When you look at these guys, who for the AL, I think it's a little more wide open. There isn't a clear-cut candidate
for Cy Young.
for Cy Young.
Okay.
You see Chicago, they've got three guys there you could argue.
Yeah,
Garrett Cole still in the mix, and if he continues to play as well as he has without the foreign substances,
yeah.
he'll be in the mix. Who else are you looking at?
I think right now, Garrett Cole, in my opinion, he's kind of the clear front runner.
Yeah.
For Cy Young. I don't see a whole lot of other people putting up much. Another guy that's interesting, it'll be interesting to see how injured he is Tyler Glasnow. He was having a really good season to this point. If he goes out and needs Tommy John, that'll derail his Cy Young award-winning chances. Shane Bieber's another guy I look at. His strikeout rate is crazy. The guy, and that's what voters, Cy Young voters and the writers, that's what they like to look for.
Yeah.
Is the high strikeout.
Strikeouts, whip, and ERA.
Yeah. So
And
his
wins.
ERA is respectable. His strikeout rates are high, but I think it's Garrett Cole's to lose at this point.
Okay. And then in the NL, who are you looking at? I mean,
It's
we've
a
been
one-horse
talking
race.
about it. Yeah, it's
It's
Jacob deGrom.
Jacob deGrom. Zach Wheeler's having a very interesting season. Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns had a good start to the year. Kevin Gausman is a name that I am very happy to see him succeed in San Francisco. Big reason why San Francisco is the way they are. Like if I had to go my three finalists for the NL Cy Young, Jacob deGrom 1, Zach Wheeler 2, Kevin Gausman 3.
Okay.
And in the AL, Cole, Glasnow, then Bieber.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, AL MVP,
Yeah.
right now, I look at who's in the race. And I think Vlad could get this at age 22.
I think Vlad is the clear front runner at this point. I don't think there's a whole lot of competition. Not no competition. There are some people kicking around. But
Ohtani, Bogarts are all guys to look at.
though
That's about it.
but like my top three right now, Vlad 1, Shohei Ohtani 2, Xander Bogaerts 3.
Yeah.
That's those I think will be the finals. Marcus Semien is one of those guys that is
he's
slowly making his way up.
He's been fantastic.
And if he were to pass a guy like Bogarts or maybe Ohtani, if the pitching starts to struggle a little bit, he could definitely be a finalist again.
Yep. And then in the NL,
Yeah.
it's looking like Tatis, but there's a little more of a race there, and it's pretty wide open. I don't know it. Is that crazy to say?
I don't think it's Tatis.
No?
I don't actually have him in my finalists right now.
Oh, okay.
I think he's cooled off a little bit.
Yep.
But I mean, he could very well get there. He's that talented of a ball player.
But we can agree it's wide open.
It is a lot more open than the AL right
Yeah.
now. And I think out of the four major awards, it's probably the most wide open.
Yep.
But I have Acuna Jr.
Okay.
at the top right now. Just spectacular this year. I love watching that home run race between him and Vlad, just constant back and forth of who's going to take the league lead. But I have Acuna 1. Nick Castellanos is having a very underappreciated season in Cincinnati. He's got a really high WAR this year.
Yep.
And third, I have Jacob deGrom.
You don't have Muncy?
Muncy, I think Muncy and Tatis are probably the next two guys on my list.
Yeah.
But in terms of the top three, the ones that are going to be there on voting night, I think it's Acuna, Castellanos, and deGrom right now.
Okay.
I deGrom's probably the best player in the National League,
Yeah.
but
It's
very
tough for a
very
pitcher.
seldomly unless the competition isn't that great, like when Kershaw won it or when Verlander won it before. They got to be, and not saying that Kershaw's not spectacular, but his competition is a lot better than those guys' competition were when they won
Yep.
their MVPs. So, yeah, Acuna, Castellanos, and DeGrom would be my finalists as of right now.